Hey guys, Infidel1258 here, and today I want to talk about Conqueror Jacek, and I want to discuss some of the cards that I think are going to be really powerful with him. We talked already about blast damage, so I'm not going to focus on that today, but I'm going to focus on some other ways that I think we can approach using this new legendary summoner, and what are some of the counters and considerations amongst other teams that might face you when you run your Yasik. Let's talk about that today. Let's get into it. We'll go over to Peak Monsters. We'll check out some of the summoners first and foremost. And so here's what I'm seeing first of all. Yasik, who is on the screen here. +2 speed, piercing, scattershot. We already talked about in a previous video how scattershot is obviously going to be very powerful with blast damage. And that means that having a number of archery related blast fire monsters, or for that matter, neutral fire monsters with blast, meaning not melee but archery or magic, meaning fire elemental, pyromaniac, grenadier, pyromancers, countess, fire demon, elemental phoenix, any of these is going to be very devastating because it's going to be scattershot dropping in the back lines for the most part, and it's going to do blast damage to 3 different people. It's going to be Jotun, but you don't necessarily, Jotun is like optimized when you have snipe attack because it's going to drop in like that second position or third position. That's optimal. Well, now with scattershot, and if you bring your own blast, wow, dangerous, deadly. Probably it's going to win a lot of games. But we've talked about that, and I think there's a lot more to Yasik. So let's focus on some of the other considerations. Some of the things that I'm thinking through include the fact that Yasik scattershot does not apply to melee damage, and so it seems to me that one of the greatest powers of Yasik is actually not the scattershot. Yes, the scattershot's interesting, and if you have blast monsters, that's going to be really potentially very functional and helpful and allow you to win, I suspect. And that piercing in combination with the scattershot and the proclivity towards archery because of those monsters I just showed you, sure, the piercing is going to be very helpful. But I think the real key contribution that Yasik is bringing is neither of these two. It's actually this 2 speed. Speed is everything. We've seen with Kitty, we've even seen with Quicks, that speed is absolutely, even with Kelia Frendel, speed wins games, period. Full stop. If you punch first, you sometimes end the match before they even hit you. And that's the key with speed. If you're getting +2 speed, that's equal to Kitty in terms of turn order. And so then it boils down to how fast are your monsters versus how fast are my monsters. And if you build speed related fire teams, this guy's going to be nasty because you're going to bring in your 5 or 6 speed and you're going to add 2 to that. And then maybe bring in some slows to nerf or blinds for that matter. Good luck. This guy's powerful in largest part due to this issue, the +2 speed. That to me is the key and the core identity of what Yasik is going to offer. Of course, the other abilities are powerful and meaningful and contributing, and they're part of the picture. But I'm saying the cornerstone of this guy's power to me is that +2 speed. And I, having just sold my Kitty, I'm like, sign me up. I'm getting this thing. I'm using it. It'll be that speed card for me. My fire team will now be amongst my kind of more frequently played teams because of that speed. So with that in mind, that makes me think that speed related fire cards are going to be one of the main considerations for me. And combining that with the idea that scattershot applies only to archery or magic, that means melee focused monsters are going to be more predictable. You don't need to rely, you're not going to be affected by scattershot. You're going to attack predictably if you bring melee monsters, if you bring opportunity melee, if you bring sneak attack melee. And so some of the amazing, fast, heavy hitting fire monsters that are melee focused with opportunity or sneak are going to be really powerful, even more so than they ever were before. And all the better if you've got, let's say, Phase as a main tank. So, I mean, Alamo Cambio has a new friend. That's the neutral legendary. Alamo Cambio has a new friend because one of this card's main abilities is that it stays alive for a long time because it's fast and evasive. It has immunity, so it can't be poisoned. It has phase, so it can dodge even magic. Return fire, magic reflect. These are two amazing things also, and this card will go so well. I say this card is like one of the cards that so far has been really significantly buffed, not just by Yasik, but yes, in part by Yasik. Also, in large part due to Grandmaster Wraith with the amplify damage as one of his abilities. And so certain cards, certain modern legendary cards are going to really, and others that we'll get into as we go forward in the video, are really going to benefit from some of these new monsters. And so that's what we're talking about here. Alamo Cambio is definitely one of it. That phase is going to be far more powerful if you have a 2+2 speed than if you have a +1 speed. This card is great even as it is, but then add to it a Yasik speed or a Kitty speed, and this thing is going to be really annoying. In fact, when I play this card while I'm running my Kitty, it's very frequently a positive exchange for me. Let's put it that way. And especially because of the immunity, but it'll still, in large part, it's going to work with that Yasik because of that speed. And so fast cards that are evasive with phase, that's going to be a strong consideration to partner with your Yasik. Other cards, like I said, opportunity focused. So Serpentine Spy is, you guys know this card's amazing, but it got better right now, right? With that 2 speed, it's going from 6 speed to 8. That's ludicrous. And it's got 6 speed even at level 7. This card is amazing at the highest levels. I've told you before, I only have a level 8. That poison would be super amazing to have, but it's just that you need so many more BCX to get there, so I haven't, and maybe I won't. But for $167, you could get that level 8, and I'm going to say this card just got better, significantly better. For 3 mana to be dropping 4 melee and at 8 speed with Yasik. And again, Scattershot will not impact the predictability of Serpentine Spy because he is an opportunity monster, melee focused, so he's going to go ahead and do his regular thing. With that white, we're looking at Battering Ram. Yeah, I mean, this is a really strong card, and I can't believe it's only 70 cents right now. This card has been around long enough that it should have way more price tag to it because it's a really good card. But you're talking 70 cents per BCX for an amazing 2 mana monster with the 2 attack, the 5 speed, the 3 hit points is obviously the weak point. But I mean, look, we're talking 2 mana, guys. It's got Shatter, which is so helpful now in particular because of what Grandmaster Wraith is doing with that armor and the taunts that are out there. So this is great from the Shatter perspective, but that also because of the opportunity, and it'll fit within the Yasik play. So that Serpentine Spy, looking at $167 to get that level that I would say is really going to change your game with the Yasik. The Battering Ram, 70 cents per BCX. You're going to want 400 of them. 0.7 times 400. So yeah, 280 for the Battering Ram. But that Battering Ram's so powerful because of its because 1, 2 mana cost, 2 melee output. Anytime your damage equals your mana cost, that's a great card. 5 speed, again, synergizing really well with the new Yasik and its +2 speed and the speed meta that it might continue to build out and make more prominent. Sure, it's weak, but you're going to be so fast that's not going to be a big issue because you're going to finish your opponent before they even have a chance to hit. And this Shatter is going to be it's going to help it's going to contribute to how Yasik responds to kind of an armor taunt thing that's been developing lately with not just with Grandmaster Wraith, but absolutely that's been added to or made more powerful through Grandmaster Wraith. And so Shatter just comes in and shuts that all down, deleting that armor and opening the door for the finishing blows of this. Plus piercing, remember piercing because Yasik, right? So all of your melee monsters, if they are dropping a taunt, you're going to shatter them, and you're going to do a crazy amount of damage. Man, Battering Ram, yeah, that's not cheap, but I think $280 for a exceptional 2 mana monster. These sort of cards with the 2 mana, the 3 mana, the 4 mana that are playable so often due to their mana cost are really the ones that turn a great deck into an excellent or a superb deck. And Parasitic Growth is part of that picture too. High melee damage output for low mana cost, 4 mana, 3 damage at the highest levels. Again, a little, I'm going to say a little bit slow compared to those other two, but in the same ballpark. And when you add 2 more speed because of the new summoner, you're very, very fast. Scavenge, I love, makes this one, sometimes it becomes a tank by the time it reaches the front. So I think there's an interesting opportunity, ability synergy with Yasik because of the reasons I just said. For the same reasons Sneak Attack applies. You can play the melee focus and thereby ignore your scatter shot, but take advantage of that speed and the piercing. And cards like Sandworm, Striker, Uraeus, and some of these older, maybe less common but equally powerful Elven Cutthroat or Kobold Miner could come into that picture too. And you could do a 6 melee monster team with your fire team using that speed to your advantage. So I think this is one of the interesting plays that Yasik allows. Massive speed, fast attacks, melee focus, and 6 melee strong is going to mean that you can be intentional with how you're attacking. Scattershot doesn't allow intentionality. You get the random selection of wherever the bomb drops is where it drops. With melee, we could do 4 sneak attack monsters and 2 front end tanks, and you're going to do a sneak attack play, or you could do 2 opportunities, 2 sneaks, and 2 front end tanks, and all of it is so much more kind of thoughtful and intentional. But then sometimes do the archery, blast damage, scattershot play. So Yasik has more than one look, and I think we would do ourselves a maximum service if we recognize that cards like Sandworm are going to really benefit piercing damage. This has piercing at the highest levels, but not everybody's going to have 400 BCX. So how would you like piercing with 300 BCX? You see my point? Like, this is the same card, 300 BCX for Sandworm, no piercing, 400 BCX Sandworm with piercing. But that's another $100. But you, who have Conqueror Jacek, you have piercing on your Sandworm at level 9. And so little things like that are going to make massive changes to certain cards and make them really, really more desirable as Yasik comes out. And I would argue Tenyi Striker is going to benefit from that piercing damage too, because it's dropping significant damage, 5 or 4. And that speed, again, is going to partner well. And that backfire is going to partner well with Yasik. And so there's a ton of melee focus that I think is really maybe not being thought through. That's going to be one of the main ways that fire benefits here. Not just archery, not just blast. And so that probably concludes my thoughts on where Yasik can really benefit. It's far more nuanced and thoughtful, and actually there's way more opportunities to just come out of this speed than at first thought with maybe the archery and the scattershot and the blast, which is a great play in and of itself. So those are my thoughts on Yasik. But then I also want to speak to some of the competitors that are out there, because it's interesting to me that Yasik, in some respects, represents a counter to Grandmaster Wraith, because Grandmaster Wraith has largely been taking advantage of the Shield Bearer taunt, and which has a 5 armor, and it has and then you get 6 armor because of Wraith, and you get that Void armor, and you get amplified damage, and you've got a taunt, so it becomes this focal point for your opponent. Well, Scattershot with Conqueror Jacek puts an end to that. So in some sense, Yasik is provides a response to Wraith. That's great. That you want that sort of interplay. That makes the game complex, nuanced, thoughtful, strategic. That's one cool thing I've noticed here. And I've also said that this armor in some sense is nice from the perspective of protection against a Conqueror Jacek. And so I can see arguments for why Wraith is better in certain contexts and why Yasik is better in certain contexts. And that interplay between legendary summoners speaks volumes about the complexity and nuance and strategic thinking and thoughtfulness of the game planning for Splinterlands. But I also think that Yoda or that Kitty has a part in this conversation. Like 2 speed with Kitty, 2 speed with Yasik. Kitty's main thing, I would argue, is speed. But interestingly, I've said before, the True Strike is like, it's cool, but it's kind of not too important, because if you're building a fast team, you're pretty much going to land your shot anyways. Of course, it helps, and it's a factor for why Kitty's so strong. But I'm saying of these 3 abilities, speed is the most important, and tank kill is the second, and True Strike is the third and most important of those abilities. And tank kill is interesting and helpful. Why? Because you put a massive tank in the first position. What does Yasik do for first position defenses? It circumvents them with scattershot if you play that archery or that magic. And so Kitty is, in a sense, countered in a big way by Yasik. Think that through, guys. First of all, 2 speed is so powerful. Well, Yasik's he's matching you. He's got his own 2 speed. So you lose that edge. Kitty lost that edge. And then the tank heal, of course, it's still powerful, it's still helpful. But if I bring a scattershot team to the table and you have a main tank team, such as we just described with Wraith, a main tank team in that first position with the taunt, my scattershot just goes right around that. And in the same way, my scattershot just goes right around your tank heal. And so the tank heal becomes irrelevant. And so I really think that Yasik might actually be a counter to in some sense, Kitty, in some sense, Wraith, and in some sense, a replacement for Jotun. So I think it just kind of turns so much of this game on its head. It's really interesting. And I don't think the implications stop there. I mean, if you think through some of the other interplay, like Wraith has Amplify, you can play Archery Reflect. That Archery Reflect could really damage some of these scattershot archery monsters that exist. You know, lava launcher, and it's going to backfire maybe because of the Amplify and the Archery Reflect. And so there's so much interesting. These two new summoners show me so much exciting new variation and pushback on what some of the existing meta has become, that I'm very excited to see the next 4 summoners. And I think it's going to continue to expand the complexity and the nuance and the thoughtfulness of this amazing blockchain-based video game. And I also continue to think it's going to drive Chaos Legion sales. Today we saw another 26,000 sold today. That's about double what we were seeing when things were kind of really slow. And I think as we get closer and closer, you're going to see this number just ramp up. And this thing's, I believe, going to go parabolic toward the ends of the 15 million, because people will have FOMO about losing out on these Chaos Legion packs, but also losing out on these legendary airdrop summoners that are going to change the game. Thanks, guys, for your time and attention. Drop below comments about which summoner you think is better of those ones mentioned: Kitty, Yasik, Wraith, and heck, some of the others. Seems to me that they're constantly and creatively finding solutions and interplay between these. That's going to be so much fun to explore. Leave your comment below. Have an amazing day. God bless.